Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was the middle of October when 27-year-old Laura Becker, a traveling nurse from Nebraska, checked into the Hollow Pines Motel just off Route 23 in rural Ohio. Her GPS had rerouted her after a construction detour, and after 9 hours of driving and spotty cell service, she pulled into the first place she could find. The neon vacancy sign buzzed and flickered as if it hadn't been maintained in decades. The man at the front desk looked like he'd never blinked in his life, pale with deep-set eyes and a stillness that felt wrong. He handed her a brass key, actual brass, not a card, and said, "Room 12. No one upstairs tonight. You'll be all alone." Then he smiled in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. The room itself wasn't awful. It smelled of mildew and old smoke, but the bed was made, the bathroom seemed clean, and it had a working lock. She set her things down and flopped onto the bed, exhausted. Outside, the wind pushed dry leaves across the parking lot. There wasn't another car in sight. Around 2:13 a.m., Laura woke up to the sound of footsteps above her. Slow, deliberate pacing. She sat up, confused. The man had said no one was upstairs. Thinking maybe someone else had checked in late, she brushed it off, until the pacing stopped directly over her bed. Then silence. Then a sharp, deliberate knock on her ceiling. 3 loud knocks, spaced perfectly. She grabbed her phone to call the front desk, but there was no service, no Wi-Fi. Even the motel's landline didn't have a dial tone. She tried to calm herself, convincing herself it could be plumbing or rats or anything ordinary. But she didn't sleep. The next morning, she told the man at the desk about the noise. He looked at her for a long moment before saying flatly, "No one's been up there in years. That floor's condemned." "Then who was walking?" she asked. He didn't answer. He just stared. Then finally he said, "People hear things. Doesn't mean anything's there." Laura considered checking out, but she was due at the hospital in a nearby town and didn't have time to find another place. That night, she bolted the door and jammed a chair under the knob, just in case. At 1:49 a.m., she woke to the sound of the TV turning on. Static. No picture, just blaring white noise. The remote was still on the nightstand. She clicked it off. The footsteps began again. This time they were quicker, like someone pacing frantically. Then came the knocking. 4 knocks now, louder than before, followed by what sounded unmistakably like dragging. She froze in bed, clutching her phone. That's when the room's temperature dropped. Not just a little. She could see her breath, and then the bathroom light flicked on by itself. The door creaked open, inch by inch. Laura grabbed her car keys and bolted out of the room barefoot, pajamas and all. She drove away as fast as her car would go, only stopping when she reached a diner 20 miles away. When she finally got a signal, she looked up the motel. No website, no recent reviews, nothing newer than a blog post from 2007, written by a man claiming his sister disappeared there and was never found. Her car was discovered parked out front, keys still in the ignition, door ajar. She had been staying in room 12. Laura reported everything to the police, but when they went to investigate the motel, they didn't find it. Not even the ruins, just trees, like it had never been there. Except in the back of Laura's car, tucked between the seats, she later found a tarnished brass key with the number 12 etched into it. She had never taken the key with her.
Story number 2.
On a rainy night in late November, Evan Grant, a 32-year-old freelance photographer, pulled into the Birch Hollow Motor Inn off Interstate 7. He hadn't planned to stay the night, but the fog had rolled in fast and heavy, and the twisting mountain roads had nearly sent him off a cliff twice. When he saw the old roadside sign glowing red through the mist, Birch Hollow Motor Inn, since 1956, he took it as a sign to stop. The place looked frozen in time. Weather-worn wood paneling, a rusted soda machine humming near the office door, and a few lonely cars scattered through the lot, all covered in the same thin veil of fog. The front office smelled like mothballs and old cologne. The woman behind the desk didn't say much, just handed him a key with a chipped wooden tag marked Room 5. "Checkout's at 9. Don't open your curtains after dark," she muttered without looking up from her crossword. Evan blinked. "I'm sorry. What was that?" She finally met his eyes. "Don't open your curtains after dark." He gave a small, uneasy laugh. "Why not?" She didn't answer, just turned the page of her crossword and motioned toward the hallway. Room 5 was small but oddly cozy. If you ignored the fact that none of the lamps had light bulbs and the only clock on the wall had stopped ticking at exactly 2:17. He used the flashlight on his phone and settled into the bed, too tired to care. At around 2 a.m., something woke him. He wasn't sure what it was at first, maybe a sound or maybe just a shift in the air pressure, but the room felt heavier, denser. He sat up and noticed that the curtains, drawn tightly when he arrived, were swaying slightly, like something had brushed them. Then came a whisper, not loud, just a hiss, soft and breathy, like it was coming from just outside the window. He leaned forward, staring at the fabric, and could see the outline of something, someone, standing behind the curtain, a human shape, motionless, close. Evan froze. The woman's warning came back to him like a scream in his mind. Don't open your curtains after dark. He backed away from the window and quietly slipped into the bathroom, locking the door. From inside, he could still hear the faint whispering, words he couldn't understand. Not English, not anything he recognized. It felt wrong. Like whatever was out there wasn't trying to speak, but imitate. Eventually, the whispering stopped. Evan stayed in the bathroom until daylight began to bleed through the edges of the curtain. When he emerged, the window was wide open. There were long, wet footprints across the carpet, bare feet, no shoes, just prints leading from the window to the center of the room, and then stopping. No return trail. When he confronted the woman at the front desk, she didn't look surprised. She just said, "You opened the curtain, didn't you?" "I didn't," he insisted. She narrowed her eyes. "It doesn't matter. If it saw you, it'll follow." He checked out and drove off, heart pounding, convinced the nightmare was over. But that night, as he reviewed photos from a wedding shoot on his laptop, he noticed something odd. In every photo, every single one, there was a figure in the background. Not clear, not centered, always at the edge. Sometimes behind a tree, sometimes reflected in a window, always watching, the same height, the same posture. He went back through older pictures. It was there too. Photos from before he even arrived at Birch Hollow. It had seen him long before he ever saw it. And now, it always will.
Story number 3.
Late one rainy night, a weary traveler named Mark pulled off the highway looking for a place to rest. His car's headlights cut through the thick fog as he spotted an old flickering neon sign. Whispering Pines Motel, vacancy. The building looked like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in decades, and the parking lot was cracked and littered with dead leaves swirling in the wind. But Mark was tired and desperate for shelter. Inside the dim lobby, a gaunt man with sunken eyes and a stiff smile checked him in without a word. The air smelled stale, like a mixture of mildew and something metallic, like blood. Mark took the creaky elevator to the 3rd floor, his footsteps echoing down the narrow, peeling wallpapered hallway. His room was cold, the cheap mattress sagging in the middle. The window rattled with each gust of wind, and the flickering overhead bulb cast eerie shadows. As Mark unpacked, he noticed the old rotary phone on the nightstand. Its receiver was cracked, the cord frayed. At around midnight, a loud knock startled him. No one else should be on this floor at this hour. Mark opened the door to an empty hallway, just the sound of his breathing and the rain pounding outside. When he looked down, the floor was soaked, as if someone had spilled water, but there was no one in sight. He closed the door and tried to shake off the unease, but then the phone rang. Hesitant, Mark answered, heavy breathing. Then a whisper, so faint it almost seemed imagined. "Don't look under the bed." His heart pounded as he hung up. The knocking started again, this time at the door across the hall. The sound was dragging, slow, like fingernails scraping wood. Against every instinct, Mark opened his door and saw the motel hallway was filled with shadows stretching impossibly long, twisting toward him like grasping hands. He slammed the door shut and locked it, but the knocking turned into pounding, a furious banging from every room around him. Then a whispering voice filled the air, dozens of voices overlapping in a chilling chorus, calling his name, begging, threatening, promising terror. Suddenly, the lights died. The room plunged into darkness. Mark fumbled for his phone, but the screen showed a photo of the bed beneath him, and under the bed, a pale hand was reaching up. Frozen, he heard the low, rasping voice once more. "You should have never stayed." The power flickered back on seconds later, but the bed was empty. The phone was dead. And outside, the rain had stopped, but the silence was heavier, like the motel itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next guest to arrive.
Story number 4.
Jason had been driving all day, trying to escape the stress of his job and the constant noise of the city. On a whim, he took a detour through a remote stretch of highway, hoping to find a quiet motel to rest before continuing his trip. When he saw the Everwood Lodge sign flickering weakly in the dusk, he pulled in. The place was deserted. The lobby lights were off, the windows dusty, and the silence pressing. Jason knocked on the door, which creaked open after a long pause. Inside, a middle-aged man appeared, his smile tight and eyes too sharp. "Room 7, he said, sliding a key across the counter. "Last room left." Jason noticed the walls were covered in old newspaper clippings, stories about people who had disappeared nearby, unsolved mysteries, missing hikers, and strange lights seen in the forest. That night, Jason lay awake, the moon casting thin shadows through the cracked blinds. Around midnight, a low humming filled the air, vibrating through the walls. The sound grew louder, unnatural, almost mechanical. Then came scratching noises at his door, slow, deliberate. He held his breath, gripping the key in his hand as the scratching grew frantic, like claws scraping for purchase. Suddenly, the door shook violently. Jason bolted upright, heart pounding, and scrambled to the door to look through the peephole. No one was there. The hallway was empty, the carpet stained and faded. He heard footsteps echoing, faint but quick, retreating down the hall. As he sank back onto the bed, relief washed over him, until he noticed something new. Written on the fogged window was a message: "Don't leave." He tried to call for help, but his phone was dead, and the lights flickered again. Outside, the forest seemed to lean closer, shadows stretching toward the building as if alive. By dawn, the man at the desk was gone, the lobby abandoned as if no one had been there in years. Jason found the front door locked tight, the key missing from his hand. He was trapped, and when the humming began again that night, Jason understood. Everwood Lodge wasn't a place to stay. It was a trap, a mouth waiting to swallow anyone foolish enough to knock.